time who was the CEO of that department, she said that food was too important to be left to farmers, and that corporate farming only, large, massive corporate farming, was the only way they were going to go. And she says the day will come when we will be responsible, the United Nations, for distributing the world's food supply to each region across the planet. She says this will have the added influence on population control, she said, because we shall not up the quotas. In fact, we'll bring the quotas down. And it's up to each region then to find ways to bring their population down. That's their problem. And it's funny that, because only last week I got a mainstream media, they said again, the same thing was said again. The United Nations must eventually take control of the whole world's food supply and ration it out equally amongst the people across the world, just like we're now into the Communist Manifesto part of the redistribution of wealth. Why would they mandate the redistribution of wealth when you've never been taxed so much in your life? You've been through bank crashes, national bank failures, and now they go ahead to redistribute your wealth, your tax money across the world. It doesn't go to the poor countries. It goes to the big corporations, international boys who set up bases in those countries. But regardless, if you're stone broke, why would they start? Well, you see, they must fulfill this agenda. It's a plan. It's a holy plan, by the way. I think folks should understand this. This isn't just a little club here of very rich people that just have a penchant for power. This is a religion here that's behind this. And you'll notice that everything is coming through law. Law after law after law, no matter how crazy the law seems. It's all done by law. So you're into a very old society that does long-term planning, that admits in its own writings that it's used communism, capitalism, socialism, dictators, tyrants even, and they don't care who they mix with and use, to get their own long-term mission accomplished. So they're not going to back off, and it's going to take an awful lot of struggle. I know in the U.S., just a few days ago there, some major media were picking up on Brzezinski's statements that there's going to be mass riots in Britain, in the U.S. So the U.S. is the same way. 2001 had nothing to do with terrorists, because every government across the planet went into action with the same agenda at the same time. That never even happened when Pearl Harbor happened in World War II. So you got to understand, this took years and years of planning beforehand, with treaties and counter-treaties, and they go back for review and back. It takes many years to get all countries on board with the same agenda, the exact same agenda of total surveillance on every citizen from birth to death. And every country jumped into the same action plan at the same time with the same treaties. That took years of planning. In the U.S., in academia, the so-called left-wing liberal guys, the professors, were pushing for the century of change for the latter part of the 20th century, talking about the millennium. And they said the millennium would kick off this century of change. And by that they meant total liberalism. And you've got to understand what they mean in the U.S. by liberalism is not what most folk think of. It's not splashing more ketchup on your French fries, you know. And they said that it would take a Pearl Harbor event to kick this off. And that was from the New American Century group that were backing Bush at the time. It doesn't matter who the front men are. It's the same people behind it each time, with each president.
Alan, I agree with all the points that you've run through, and I'm just thinking for listeners out there, one of the major difficulties is not that there's no evidence. There's just so much evidence that it's difficult to package it sometimes, so that people can start to grasp it, because it is a big thing. It's a very big thing, but out there is a huge amount of evidence, which you know off by heart. But for other people, we can say that the moment you start looking, there's many other people who many years before us have been digging into this, and they've been writing and warning about what's happening. I've got a couple of books in front of me. I've got a soft spot for a guy called Commander Carr, who was
Guy Carr,
a Canadian.
Yeah.
And he wrote a book called Pawns in the Game. And if you go through his book, it covers everything that you've touched on. And of course, he was touring in Canada in the 1930s, trying to warn people of what was building. I've got one of Christopher Story's books here. I've got Behind Communism by Frank L. Britton, which is a very good book. You can get that from Bloomfield Books. And that, of course, is delving into an area that people don't often look at, and many people don't like to go because it's quite dark. But it's saying, well, where did the communists come from? And what it's starting to point out, of course, is that it was the same banking cabals that created the fascist problem. So we know there's a lot of evidence out there, but I think at the moment that we've got something absolutely unique, and the other side has given it to us, and that's the internet. And I look out the window at the moment, and on one hand I can see the beast that you're talking about is clamping down very quickly, but it's doing that in a more and more obvious way. And the other thing that's happening is that I believe the other side is starting to rush. And the reason it's rushing is because it knows that more and more people are starting to see the plan for what it really is. And of course the internet and modern media, whether it's a phone or the mobile phone, means that the message can go worldwide very quickly. And if you say what are these people frightened about or frightened of, I agree totally when you say you can't just ask them to go away. But something that they are completely terrified of is just exposure, is enough people being able to see what they're doing. And if I focus just in on the UK at the moment, it's fascinating to watch how a chubby cabbage patch, as we know him, Prime Minister Cameron, has gone from that unwrinkled, smooth-faced schoolboy to looking incredibly haggard and nervous and upset in the space of 3 days or, well, a week's media exposure. So I think that we're here on the show and we're helping people to see what's going on. But I've got to say, I'm actually getting very, very interested in the effect that we, and I mean that's a very big we, not just yourself, but all of the people who've been out there speaking and talking about what's happening, and other people who are passing messages on email and Twitter and the internet, the message is coming out about what these people are doing. And
it's coming out.
Also,
it's coming out. Yeah.
Sorry?
Here's what we've got to watch for, though. And I realized this an awful long time ago, is that the world is planned by military strategy. And these guys at the top have had a long time, a lot of practice in this stuff, down through centuries, actually. And they know what they want to do in stages, and they plan it, each part, what year it's going to happen, this is going to happen, that part's going to happen. But they also know, and they're trained to do this by other ways, which I won't go into, but they know what the reactions will be in different segments of the population. And so they try and plan ahead to even give us heroes. And here's the thing people have to be very careful of. They try to give us heroes at times before they even start the operation that would create the need for a hero. And so they'll have someone in the wings ready to take over. Some of them talking to crazy stuff, and that way it puts so many people off. So be careful. Again, don't just go all over outer space when you hear this stuff. But the other part is too, remember, they gave us the internet. And they knew what its effects were going to be. In fact, before they gave us the internet, in the newspapers, they were talking about the coming information wars before they gave us the darn thing. So they were already prepared for that too. We've got to remember too, it gives them an instant pulse on the public on a daily basis across the world. They know what we're chatting about. They try and guide us, of course, into the wrong places now. But they know what we're chatting about. They know the mood of the people. And they know the danger, if there's a danger from the people as well. They are at a crucial point, no doubt about it, because they must pull this off. And mainly because, as I say, they have a timetable. And they must stick to the timetable. They're really obsessional about timetables. And but they're also ready, as I say, to take care of the worst things of all, and that's mass rioting. If mass rioting comes in, remember, a riot really, and they keep saying this in their own writings, they call it the mob effect. A rioter is not going by any plan. It's someone who's basically screaming, yelling, and setting fire to his own cars in his own street. And that happens when your back's against a wall and you are on food rationing and you are broke. What you have to have is organization. What we're up against here is a network across the world of very old families who are masters. They're trained from childhood in this organization. These are the most organized people on the planet. In fact, we're living in their system. This is not our system. And when you realize this is not our system, even how the culture's changed, it's not even our culture. TV gave us the culture. Music, television gave us the culture. And their scientists gave us the rest of it. So we've got to realize that you got to have a basis to start from. And you've got to have your own manifesto. They have theirs. You got to have your own manifesto to start from too. And you need to have numbers in the groups to stand up together, or they'll pick you off one at a time, which they're actually doing. And you got to know where you're heading. That's the main thing. For all the talk radio hosts out there, no one is coming out with what to do. You see?
Oh, I disagree. I disagree, because this word exposure is absolutely key. The plan that they've put together, and I agree that we're looking at a network across the world. We're looking at some very powerful families, and we know that they train and plan and they do all those sorts of things. But the plan across the centuries has been hidden. It's been specifically designed to be hidden in the shadows or completely buried so that ordinary people couldn't understand what was happening to them.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
It's a covert plan. It was a covert plan. And if you translate it across to military terminology, just to go in that direction, because it's a bit of fun for me, is that if you unleash a covert plan, and you might be doing quite well, but the moment the other side sees what you're doing, there's absolutely no point in being covert. You have to become overt, and then you have to do everything much faster because you're discovered. And every time there is a major hit at the moment on an individual or an organization where people really know what they're doing, you see the other side absolutely shudder, because it's only to expose them that actually wins the battle. Because when enough people...
And I think once you're on, the thing about exposing them, you've got to keep at it, and even the same ones too. And you believe part of the problem is we've got so many to choose from.
Well, the other bit I was going to add is that I personally don't think we need a manifesto, because it's simpler than that. The other side is working in the shadows, or has been, and it lies. It consistently lies in who it is, what it's doing, the world we live in. The whole ethos of the other side is lies. And our counter to that is not a manifesto, it's a single word, it's truth. Because if we publish the truth, if we get people looking at the truth and seeking the truth, you completely destroy what the other side is doing. And the other magic for this, I don't like that word too much, but I've said it now, is that as you push forward the truth, you've never got to double check yourself, because you know what you're saying is true, what the message is, and that is what brings the numbers on board. There's that old saying that a minority that's right soon becomes the majority. And I actually think that these families are very, very frightened.